Hey guys, so I haven't done a video in a while or a couple days, but I have been working on some nifty effects and I just wanted to make a quick video to share that. So what this one in particular is going to be about is just a simple explosion from a smoke pillar that I originally created in Houdini FX and then imported into Unreal Engine. I'll go ahead and just show off the effect first and then I'll talk a little bit about how I did it. It's actually pretty simple. Anybody should be able to recreate it in an hour or two of work once you get acquainted with Houdini FX or the Cascade particle system. If you have not, I do highly recommend getting into that because it is fun. It's really fun to just do all the different things with the particles, and it is very in depth. So if you're into particles and into games, I highly recommend that you check out Cascade and Unreal Engine because it is just awesome to work with. So I'll go ahead and just drag this out of here. Oh, nice and bright. Let's play through one more time to get a better look at it. Yep. All right, this is fine. Boom. Okay, I probably should have put a delay on there so it didn't show up quite at first, but we can now go into Cascade and break it down a little bit. So basically all that this is a smoke simulation that I made in Houdini. I created an atlas texture from 64 frames of animation of that simulation, and then I brought that here into Houdini. I actually used a nifty little material that you kind of plug in some arbitrary parameters depending on how big or small you want the fire, but you're basically just using a smooth step to get a nice subtle erode from the original smoke, and you pass that into a black body ramp to get actually nice colors, and then you fill that in the emissive color. So instead of having to do both a smoke simulation and then another fire simulation to get the look of the fire, I actually just used an eroded version of the initial smoke texture, which admittedly does actually still need some work. But let's go ahead into Houdini and break that down a little bit. Right. Houdini. Okay, so this is actually a pretty standard smoke simulation. Everything you'd expect to be there is there. Started out with just a simple sphere and kind of displace the geometry with a mountain top, just to get whatever the look that I wanted was. There's still a couple issues with the volume bounding, as you can see there, it's hitting the top. So it does still need some tweaking, but it's relatively simple to get up. I just started using where are we? Pyro effects. I just use the billowy smoke, actually, because it creates a nice big old smoke cloud. And then from there, I just tweak the settings in both my resize, the solver, and in the actual pyro node itself, just to get the look that I wanted. The things that I played with most, actually, if we go back into the solver, are these four. I toyed with sharpening. It didn't really give me some of the looks that I wanted, so just kind of playing with these different parameters to get it to look the way that I wanted. Something also nice to note, let me get out of this view. I do have a couple lights in the scene. You want to light this in such a way that it makes sense, but you also don't want it to be lit overdone. And what I mean by that is if you overlight this, like you might make it look really, really pretty in one scenario, but if it's too bright, it might not fit with the lighting and it might be actually harder to integrate that in. So I just incorporated a couple small distant lights to get a nice kind of warm fill color and then a nice little cool color to get some contrast in the back. Although I took it from this angle so you can't particularly see it, but it does provide nice contrast in some of those areas and all along here. And in fact, in this one, if you notice, I ramped up the shadow intensity just to really make the smoke pop and bring out that light. I did also make this looping, and I did have to follow a few videos to get this done because I don't completely understand what's going on. But basically, I'm getting my cache, which is normal, right? And I'm essentially just shifting it forward 75 frames, and then I do a volume mix between another modulus division of 64 frames plus 32, so I'm always 32 frames ahead. And then I just set my blend mode. Actually, I just left it at the normal blend, and I just keyed, if you look here, between 0 and 1 of the destination blend and the source blend to just always have the smoke looping. Over here, I actually used this as a mask to just help further shape the fire. Or sorry, not the fire, the smoke. I used this as a mask to further shape the smoke because I didn't want hard edges down here at the bottom where you could clearly tell where the source geometry is. I also didn't want really hard edges here at the top. Ultimately, I still need to tweak the mask more because it was still giving me those hard edges. But basically, start with another sphere, and let's go ahead and put this on template. All right, and it's going to cook because that's what Houdini does. All right, yeah, my computer's a little slow, but you pretty much just use the sphere to kind of get most of this area. I didn't want the top because it was clipping, but I also kind of took a better angle from the bottom, so I guess I didn't worry about the bottom as much as I should have. And that's probably something that I'll tweak later, but essentially, just kind of going through and breaking up the look of it a little bit so it's not so even, moving it a little bit, and then we're actually going to take this into a VDB. But we need to convert the VDB because VDBs do not support native Houdini volume operations, which is exactly what this did. Just a volume resize to get it to kind of fit the area that I wanted. And I then went and blurred this volume so it wasn't too strong. I didn't want any hard edges because, again, there's no hard edges in smoke. It's a dense, gaseous, particulate filled volume, and if you have hard edges, it just doesn't look good. And then essentially just took it straight up into a multiply blend mode for a volume mix to get my mask times my original volume, and just kind of tweaked it with the post multiplication, which will actually up this original volume. So if I might change this a little later if I feel that there's not enough of the original volume and maybe I want less of the mask, I can easily change this. And then in my volume VOP over here, just have another ramp to kind of further control the density a little bit. I'll actually hop out of the volume VOP and just show what I did with it. This ramp is only to kind of have the density start really small up here at the beginning and then just kind of smooth out to max density up here at the top as smoke kind of has a tendency to do. And then, that works good for the smoke simulation in Houdini. After bringing it into Unreal Engine is when I applied more of the like fade off effects and everything that actually makes it look better. Actually getting the Atlas texture though was surprisingly easy. I thought it was going to be some involved process, but it really wasn't. Just place down your mantra node in Houdini and render out however many frames you want your Atlas to be. And then you can actually, in the built-in compositor, do it from there. So, I pulled in all of my frames and then just did a mosaic where I have, and in mine, I knew I had 8 frames. And it works really well if you do anything in base of 2. In fact, a lot of engines kind of just prefer dealing with base 2 because, base 2 is the 10 form of binary, if you will. It works well for engines, and it's also really easy to do that math in your head. So, I know I had 64 frames. That means I'm probably going to want 8 images per line, and then I just told it, oh, hey, I have, 64 frames. And that's the render view. If you go in the composite view, it might actually, well, I promise the Atlas texture is there. Well, okay, the Atlas texture is there, and I'm not going to bother filling out with it. I could render it out, I guess. It doesn't matter. At this point, it is imperative that you pre-molt your colors. This will further prevent some of your hard edges from existing and help get rid of them. And let's actually go into Unreal Engine here really quickly and take a look at my texture, because my texture actually, my texture actually still needs quite a bit of work. I didn't quite do it as well as I wanted, and I actually need to import asset because Unreal is funny. All right, yeah. Also, this better breakdown and also where I got this material from was on pluralsight Houdini Houdini FX for games basically, which showed all of this process and much. It actually went through and stuff, but I thought I'd just do a quick breakdown here because it's not terribly intense to get this far. All right, and it's going to take a couple seconds, but that's the okay. Well, this is the new texture that I've tweaked up a bit, but I still want to put some more, show some more things I want to do to it. I'm still having some issues with the edges, so I just need to make sure my volume's at the right size, make sure I get a good flattering angle. I also toned down the color a bit. If you look in this original one, it's like a little too yellow, so I just wanted to tone that down a bit. And we've got, we've also got alpha. Oh, jeez. I wish there was like a shortcut to turn off the alpha right now. I'm sure there is. Max alpha. What if I... Oh, where did my mouse go? I probably broke it. Well, you know, I really just wanted the alpha. Oh, heck, man. I just wanted the alpha off to, make it easier to see. But if you look, come on. Okay. It's gonna do its thing, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Whoops. I should have turned the minimum alpha to 1. And then everything will be black. Yeah, okay. So if you look, all of this where it like hits that max space, that's because I didn't pay attention to my bounds when I was rendering, and it just, I just need to tweak that. I just need to make sure my volumes are within the frame completely. Probably could zoom out a bit to avoid having to rebake, but that's basically just the big issue that I'm having with this. And again, that's not terribly difficult to fix. And it's annoying just because you kind of get these seams that go all the way up against it, and it doesn't look realistic. And that's actually the biggest issue. It doesn't look realistic. You get those hard cuts, and you can clearly tell where it is. But to get this far, ooh, excuse me, to get this far is actually pretty simple. You just give it that material where you've got your particle alpha being multiplied by your source alpha to get your opacity, but you also have your particle color times your base color to get the color. Doing the fire itself again was just based off of a few or several arbitrary parameters to control the threshold of my max, how soft it is, the actual temperature, because black body ramps take a Kelvin temperature value and put out a color, and then the actual intensity itself. I just drove that in here and then set it as your material, and then actually getting this far was not terribly difficult. You just want to make sure that you have your sub UV movie so you get this animated and not just one individual texture. And also, really don't underestimate the size of your particles. To get this to actually look and feel full, as you can see, I did scale them up quite a bit, and just I applied some initial rotation as well as some rotation over acceleration or rotational rate to just further break that up. Velocity was pretty fast. Just again, you want this to start small and like grow big because it's like a big old explosion. And in fact, that's what this size by life is doing, is starting, if we look right here at the birth of my particle, it's at 0, and then it ramps up really quickly in terms of 6 times the initial size really really quickly in the scene. So you start from nothing and go big, and that's exactly what you want. And then also in your, I set up a dynamic just so I could also have more control over my parameters in the particle system itself. Another caveat, you want to make sure that your temperature is not too low. Otherwise, you won't get the bloom effects that you want. And in fact, let's say, maybe I set this to 500 because I thought 500 degrees was, 500 degrees is pretty hot, but it doesn't actually get the bloom that you would want. And if we look, we'd lose the fire because it's just not that hot. So don't underestimate the size of your particles, because you do want your smoke to look really full and dense. You don't want to underestimate the speed, but you also want to understand the look you're going for. Big explosions usually start really small and instantly go big, so you want to have a large sort of acceleration of your time, or of your size, if you will. The derivative of your size would be relatively large to get that huge change really quickly. And like I said, your temperature as well, because if you want light to be cast, it wouldn't technically be casted, but if you want the bloom effect to actually, take effect and to get that in your viewport, you're going to have this be something like 10,000 degrees, or maybe a little cooler if the fire wasn't that hot, or maybe a little, hotter if the fire was something really, really intense. And as we can see, we're getting that bloom effect, but maybe like, what if I double that temperature? You can get different effects. So just play around with the look of how you want it. A lot of this look came initially from Houdini, but you do still have to set up the particle system itself because, it's not just plug and play, and that's totally fine. Look, now we have a lot more bloom. You get the picture. Oops. So with that, I'm going to be signing off. If you do have a Pluralsight subscription, I do highly recommend checking out Andrew Glasses. I'm terrible with names. Andreas Glad, sorry. I would recommend checking out Andreas Glad's Houdini VFX Games course. It's really good so far, and that's where this came from. So I've obviously mine doesn't look exactly the same. I've been trying to tweak it to make it look different, but this entire setup I got from here. It's a very nice setup, and again, I do recommend just going through it and following it. With that, thank you guys for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one.